Woo! Oh, baby. It is time for another one of those, Sovryn Tech live Q&A hangouts. I know I already got some people watching. Yeah. Got it. Well, let's see. What do we got? 3 people? I'll take 3 people. That works for me. Let's see here. Okay. Whoa. Everything's botching up. All right. There we go. Yeah, this is a one-man pony. What am I doing? I'm mixing all my metaphors. This is a one-man show. So yes, I'm running everything, and I'm running everything off of one screen only. And in fact, it's funny. I don't know if anybody else is having this issue. Of course, yes, again, this is the Sovryn Tech live Q&A. You can be a part of it. If you are a Sovryn Tech patron, you got the Hangout link to be able to join into it, or you can just hang out in the YouTube, live chat, and I look at that regularly. Throughout the entire recording. Excuse me while I have some. Actually, let me make sure you see this this cup here. Oh, look at that action! Woo! What are we gonna do about those bankers? Hold on. Some Valhalla coffee right there, the good stuff, and not the cheap stuff by any means either. Boy, where was I going with all of that? Oh yeah, Hangouts. I don't know if anybody else has noticed this, but actually with Google Chrome itself, I can't get Hangouts to work because it says that my camera, obviously my camera is working. This is my, integrated camera on my laptop on my Dell 7559 Inspiron 15. Woo! But Chrome just won't recognize it at all. And so I have to actually run it in Opera. Fortunately, I'm one of those, freaks, one of those weirdos that actually has Opera installed, that uses Opera on the regular, which I do. But anyway, yeah, if you've had that problem, I'd be interested to hear about that from anybody. I can't really seem to find. I mean, there's some people that talk about it on like the Google, change logs or whatever, on their help forums, but usually you don't find any genuine answers, as far as all that goes. So I do have some questions that people were asking that couldn't attend. They couldn't be here, and so I might just end up getting into those. Of course, you're welcome to ask questions in the YouTube live chat. Like I said, I know there's already at least a couple people in there. This will be available after the fact. This will be available as an audio-only version, and there will be a link to the actual video itself as well. When you go to Patreon and you go to this episode, it'll be in there. It'll be in the show notes for the the podcast version of it. So, and I know most people that's actually how they listen to it. I'll get a pretty good crowd that'll come in from the Patreon crowd, but generally that's how it shapes up. So let me take a look and see what we have as far as questions. We had at least a couple that people had asked ahead of time. One of them I know I'm not going to be able to answer very well, and I say I won't be able to answer very well because I haven't totally looked into it. But I'll read it here. Let's see. I'll be unable to attend this live. If I leave my questions here, will you answer them? And I said yes. If you saw the Prism announcement from Consensus 2017, do you have any thoughts? To much less. So I haven't checked out entirely the Prism announcement. Like I really don't concentrate much anymore on I shouldn't say anymore. I mean, personally, I keep an eye on a lot of this stuff, but like as far as for Sovryn Tech, I don't keep a huge close eye on blockchain stuff because I think a lot of what gets talked about and released as far as blockchains go has either been proven to not really deliver what it needs to deliver on, or it doesn't scale, which I don't have a problem with that it doesn't scale. But then most people don't see it as a good speculative investment if it doesn't scale, right? For example, Ethereum. Like Ethereum only has value because of speculation. It doesn't have value because of any kind of like actual intrinsic value, like say the network of what it is. As to where Bitcoin had an intrinsic or has an intrinsic value, I mean, you could debate it now, but over the years, yep. Does it send money to somebody else without having to deal with regulation and blah blah blah? Absolutely. Like, years ago, that was totally true. So it has an intrinsic value. As to where Ethereum, there's nothing real that like genuinely real that's built on top of it. So, again, its value can only, in my opinion, only comes from people speculating that it's going to be able to do these things in the future. But, I don't have any proof that that's ever going to be, in fact, the proof is that it won't end up being that way. So bottom line being is that putting everything, and this is old stuff. I mean, this is stuff I've been saying for the past 2-3 years. Putting a bad idea onto the blockchain doesn't suddenly make a bad idea a good idea. And what I'm seeing a lot now is, okay, how can we do things that we, can normally be done just straight client side? Maybe there's a little server somewhere or whatever. But how can we put this onto the blockchain? Like there's that one, putting a VPN on the blockchain and all that, when they're not really putting a VPN on the blockchain. That's not exactly what's happening. In fact, if anything, it's being built onto Ethereum, which, like I was just describing, hasn't proven itself yet, not by a long shot. So, in fact, if anything, again, like I said, it's proven the opposite, when you think of the DAO and whatever else. So, yeah, I don't buy into this just like putting a service onto a blockchain and then suddenly it's cool. No, I completely disagree. This is just the realm of speculators, not actually people trying to advance technologically, and advanced technology in general. So anyway, not going to talk about Prism right this second, but I will save that. We are going to be doing another live Hangouts Q&A. It'll probably be either Tuesday or Wednesday this week, because we had to do 2 for May to make up for April. But let's see here. We have, to much less fanfare, reading on with another question. There was an announcement on Friday that a decentralized peer-to-peer exchange would be opening soon, running on the Safe network. Have you heard of this? If so, would love to hear your thoughts. I did hear about this, that there would be kind of an exchange. This is another thing where, look, I love the concept, the abstract of Made Safe. I think it's a wonderful thing. Still need to see, really, like, right now it's running off of what's that company? Like it's using a lot right now. It's kind of using servers. Like it's not really up and running on its own. As I understand it, unless somehow that changed. Not Glacier. No, I could look it up, but it's not that important. Any announcement that's going on with MadeSafe, it's another case, just like with Ethereum, where show me that it's actually functioning the way it was advertised to function. And I'm not knocking MadeSafe, as to where I'll happily knock Ethereum all day long. I'm not knocking MadeSafe at all. I love the people there. I'm saying that, I got to see that MadeSafe's working first before I get really excited about any actual services getting put on top of it. Maybe I can research more on a couple of those, and I will touch on them deeper in the future. So anyway, let's move. Let's see what's going on in the live chat here. Let's see. Bitcoin broke the top 10 market cap. Is it innovative or same as Monero? Unfortunately, another case. I don't know about Bitcoin. I'm not a fan of Monero either. I mean, if it's using CryptoNote, if that's the idea, I'm not saying there's necessarily something inherently wrong with CryptoNote. There was. That's why I went to CryptoNote 2, and then with CryptoNote 2, we had there was that Merkle tree problem. But Bitcoin, I don't know. So that's another one where I'd have to get back to you on that. But appreciate the fact when I say I don't know, because a lot of people would just want to BS their way around it, which it annoys the hell out of me. So I don't do it to other people. Duh, what a shocking revelation. But I do appreciate the question all the same. I really think I just want to reiterate this, and we got somebody that came into the Hangout. I will get to them in a moment. I want to reiterate again that, I think there's going to be like thousands of coins. There really are. In fact, this is something I talked about in a recent Patreon episode. And I made the comment, in fact, I got corrected by somebody. I made the comment that, some might consider, or that in the past, like 100 years ago, you used to have, way more currencies than you do now, when you had what could be described as a freer market, not an actual freed market, but a freer market. And I think I had made the statement that, you might say that's because there was more countries back then, but, or something like that. And that's why there was so many, but actually there were less at the time. I think that's the correction that was made to me, but anyway, you hear about things like Bitcoin and whatever, maybe these things will be legit. I do think that there's going to be literally thousands of currencies if we ever get to an actual freed market system, or even something more free. I do think that we're going to end up with a lot of these, and cryptocurrencies are definitely a huge part of the future, because unlike Ethereum, unlike, some of this other stuff, it's proven. Like, you can see them work. And you can have questions about how well they scale, but then, of course, my point is always, do they even need to scale? And I would argue, I'd say no. But then people have to be of the mindset that, yeah, I don't need everybody to be able to use this, which is not an uncommon mindset. I mean, in various parts of the world, you have, you look at like, is it North Dakota that has their own bank, things like this. A lot of people have this idea that, no, I want a regional currency, and I think that's going to be a popular thing. So anyway, let's see. Let's look at one more in the live chat. Then I want to get to the person that's in the Hangouts. Let's see. I had a spooky Mormon hell dream. Genghis Khan, Jeffrey Dahmer, Hitler, and Johnny Cochran were there. Should I be concerned? Also, Jesus called me a dick in it. I love it. Should you be concerned? Yeah, I guess maybe Kratom like actually really does fuck with your head quite a bit. And that's pretty good. Yeah, I don't know. Dreaming about Hitler. I don't. What does that mean? Well, I'll tell you something. Something I think is an absolute scam is yeah. I know the person was being funny, or maybe they weren't being funny, or maybe they really had that, but they're still being funny. Dream analysis, boy, anybody that gets into that crap, just turn them off. Do not listen any further. I think that is, yeah, certainly dreams are meant to like process, things that are going on for you consciously or unconsciously throughout the day. No doubt about that. But that shit is so subjective, because dreams are an objective reality. So, they don't really lend themselves to much interpretation. You can take out of it what you want, but, yeah, I don't know. I think people that get into that scheme, I don't trust it. Okay, one last, then I will get to the person patiently waiting in the Hangouts. One last from the live chat. Have you ever thought of doing a part on the Unabomber and or any other tech critical philosophies, Lewis Mumford or Jacques Ellul? Yeah, boy, well, I'll say this. I've certainly said in the past that if you've listened to Sovryn Tech, long enough, and we've been going almost 6 years now, how you don't like just toss out your computer and your smartphone and go run off into a cave somewhere. It's it just speaks so much to the human will because it's so bad. I haven't talked, I've talked about and defended actually anarcho-primitivism to a degree in the past on the show. I am open to talking about, tech critical philosophies and a lot of that, those other aspects. And I really understand why. Because sometimes, and I'm not defending the Unabomber by any stretch of the imagination or anybody else that wants to go to violence. But some of these really critical things of tech, I'm critical of IoT, of the Internet of Things. I think that's the worst idea I've ever heard in my life. Just straight up, it is the absolute worst. And there's a lot of great points to be made about, being critical of technology in general. I remember when, oh boy, what was the guy's name? There was a guy that was like taking an axe to computers. Maybe it's one of the names that was mentioned in the chat, but the guy was taking axes to computers and he was on CNET Central. This is back in the 90s. Now as a teenager and everything. You look at the guy and you think he's kind of nuts. But he's talking and it's like, well, shit, he sort of has a point of what this stuff is enabling and allowing for. And also, maybe the most damning thing about the modern, or at least about the mobile first world that we live in, more of the modern computing that we deal with tablets and smartphones and all that. The most interesting, condemnation to me is the fact that, and it is a fact, that most of like the tech giants, the CEOs of tech giants, don't let their kids use iPads or Kindles, or like we know Steve Jobs didn't let his kid use an iPad. Well, like wouldn't even give them an iPhone. That's a very interesting. No one ever really found out the reasons why exactly, but we know that they wouldn't let their kids use the own technology that they're selling off to other kids, like openly, especially Amazon, who they have literally kids fire tablets. They're made for kids. And yeah, there's a lot of questions to be asked about that. What exactly is their line of thinking? And nobody ever gets really the answer to it. It'd be, I can't interview Steve Jobs today, but boy, it'd be the first question I'd ask him. Why don't you let your kid use an iPad? Explain that to me. Or if I ran into Jeff Bezos, it would be the first thing I'd ask him. So why doesn't your kid use a Kindle Fire or something like that? Yeah, I'd love to hear those answers. So anyway, maybe we can talk about that more. And I have another question that actually has to do with the degree of primitivism that was sent ahead of time that hopefully I can get into. But why don't we we've got Jacob in the Hangout here. Who he's here for every every Hangout, and I love it, man. So Jacob, if you're around, you can go ahead and unmute yourself. Otherwise, I'll keep. Oh, there you are. Oh, there he is. Video and everything. He's looking good.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. How we doing, Jacob?
Not bad.
Cool. What do you got for me? I'm gonna have a swig of some coffee here while you're talking.
Well, I just wanted to kind of talk a little bit about your some of your recent shows. First off, I love Sense8 review you did on the most recent one. A great show that is underrated and really needs to get more exposure.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I'm scared to death because I would have expected them to just say, "Oh yeah, we're doing season 3," but that, especially with a lot of other shows getting announced that they're going to get a season 3, like The Expanse, thankfully is getting a season 3. I'm really worried that this show is not going to get it, and it's the only one not the only one. The Expanse I was worried about as well, but those are the two shows that I'm just like, okay, please, you got to make sure we get more of this, But go ahead, thanks for that.
Yeah, especially since they left it on a cliffhanger.
Yeah, right on, absolutely. So, in fact, I'll let people know quick. There was the recent episode of The Geek's Guide to the Galaxy, which is a podcast that Wired does that is really good if you're into science fiction. And they did like a whole review about shows why science fiction shows, why they get canceled. In fact, I should look up the book. I don't have my Kindle handy, but there's a great book that talks about like why science fiction shows get canceled and everything. I mean, it's a fascinating listen. And one of the ones that they also were worried about was Sense8. In fact, they said that one of the ways it was interesting. They said one of the ways to make sure a show doesn't get canceled would actually be to torrent it. Or just like don't do write-in campaigns, don't do any of that stuff. The best things you can do is either like buy episodes on iTunes or torrent it. Just give them some kind of metrics that they can show off, besides Nielsen ratings, because of course Netflix has no Nielsen ratings. Give them some kind of metrics that they can show off to investors, which I thought was fascinating. Anyway, go ahead, Jacob.
Yeah, I agree. Considering some of the topics it touches on, I guess I'm not so surprised it doesn't get such a wide audience as some other shows. But
yeah, right.
I think I think people could really do well to be exposed to some of those topics.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, Sovryn Tech runs into the same thing, right? I know a lot of people, and I don't begrudge them. I get it, but a lot of people, as soon as they hear like women moaning, they turn the show off, and so, like I totally understand why this sort of thing happens. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, and kind of moving on from that, I know you mentioned it. I mean, it's kind of related because you mentioned a couple of weeks back that you were getting some heat from even some patrons about some of the recent shows. I'm assuming that's probably maybe the ones with where you had MK as a guest, or the one with Stephanie where you guys talked about gender and race as a social construct. So I just wanted to say that I appreciate those types of episodes, and it's good to get alternative views out there on those issues.
Sure. No, I appreciate that, Jacob. I mean, and like in all fairness, there's critics of those episodes that still say they're glad that they exist. Like they're glad that they they listened to them and they get it. They don't agree at all, but they still appreciate, hearing that perspective, which that's the best thing I could ever hope for, or honestly even want. Okay, fine. We don't agree, on these things. And these are very divisive topics, and they're hot topics, especially today. I don't know when they haven't been, but maybe in the Roman Empire or something. But I mean, like as long as we can actually talk about it, as long as we can, get along. And even if there's some, bashing going back and forth, I mean, that's, to me, largely that chalks up to human nature. Like, I mean, that's almost catharsis and good, let it out. But then, let's just keep on rolling anyway. Let's keep on, having the conversation and just go forward. And really, again, if everybody's anarchists, I mean, just leave everybody the hell alone, So yeah, no, well, I'm glad. I appreciate that. Cause I gotten some heat. I'm expecting some heat from this week's episode as well. When I was talking about, kind of the stock, nuclear family unit, that I think a lot of people would be like, what, you're talking about having 3 parents or 4 parents or what, I mean, so we'll see how that goes, but these are conversations I don't hear on many other shows. So I like to have them. Go ahead, Jake.
Well, if you could, if you get criticism for that, those people obviously haven't been listening very long.
Right. Yeah. Well, good point.
Something to expect.
Yeah.
Um, you teased something of a new podcast series you're going to do on Patreon only. What's this? User you called it?
Yeah, so I had a couple. I'm still not totally clear on like which one I want to, what name I want to run with. I was thinking USE, which is the acronym for unexpected system event or error, unexpected system error. And but I might go, because error ends with an R, I might just make it user, because that'd be kind of a cool, it fits in nicely with Sovryn Tech. So, but the show, I mean, it's going to be a little structured. I might even, like, for some episodes, I might actually write out, the episode, like what I'm going to say, which I've never really experimented with that before. But because I want it to be, very matter of fact and to get into, I mean, it's going to be all kinds of subjects, it's going to be history, it's going to be philosophy, it's going to be all kinds of stuff, but it is going to be only on Patreon. For people to get access to, because I figure they got to get used to hearing the nuttiness, just how it relates to Tech First on Sovryn Tech, before they'd even dream of, like hearing it going all the way without like a tech angle at all, and just, getting it shot straight. So yeah, that's kind of the basic gist of that show.
So any timetable on that?
Yeah, so first episode should be done, or will be out before PorcFest. That's the plan, and PorcFest is going to be June 22nd. So I'm trying to finish up my first book right now, and the user will be recorded within that process. So. And the book is, for since it's patrons, I don't mind saying that the book is actually, it's a dark android book. It's not a book. It's not like, I think some people were hoping it was like a philosophy book or something. I would not claim to be that kind of a philosopher whatsoever, to be able to do that sort of thing. But it will be a dark android book, kind of made for everybody. Like it's not going to have an anarchist flair or bent necessarily to it. And so that has to be done before PorcFest, because I'll be giving a talk kind of about that. And so obviously I wouldn't mind, selling a few copies while I'm at it. So that's got to get finished up. But yeah, user will start with that. And user is going to end up being a weekly podcast. I mean, like that'll be out every week. So
is this like an ongoing thing, not just a limited series?
Yeah, I'm going to see how it goes. Like I have quite a few episodes planned, like how it's going to shape up. And depending upon the reaction to it, will depend on how far I go with it, like how often I if I'll keep going. But I, like, out of the gate, it does have like a set, like particularly 6 episodes that each have a specific subject that I want to cover, and that culminate into kind of an end game. In fact, that would be the name of the 6th or 7th episode, depending on how things work out. But it could keep on going. If people really love it, I'll just keep rolling with it, So yeah, that's the gist behind that.
All right, cool. That's about all I've got. I do just want to give a shout out to Cory Doctorow's new book, Walk Away.
You wrote a review about this. I loved it.
Yeah.
The review.
Yeah. I think it's a book that all anarchists and libertarians should read. It's a compelling vision of the future, leaves you arguing with it through the whole book. And, and that's a good thing. And it, I just think it'd be great because it offers a glimpse of possible intentional communities, how those might be developed.
Yeah, it really, like, as I saw it, as I understand it, it really shows off like something I've talked about on Sovryn Tech a lot. How do you build can you build like a community that just sort of exists outside of the system, entirely?
That's exactly what it is. They're built right. They walk away from default society and just do their own thing.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I think that is really, like, right now, to get quote unquote liberty in your lifetime, that's how you do it. And is just, and I think it's possible. Like I really do. I haven't read the book yet, but I will be doing so. But I think it's totally possible to, like, just exist within the cracks, because again, as much as everybody starts relying upon, their smartphone and everything, so does everybody in government rely upon the fact that you use your smartphone. And so if you kind of, step back and maybe don't use, a Google account or, a lot of these apps and all this different stuff, and you use alternative, technologies and apps that exist right now, I really think like that you effectively disappear from the system, like, because again, as much as you are hooked on using, not you, but you, the abstract, is hooked on Foursquare or on something on Facebook. Once you get away from it, like, you disappear from them because they're also reliant upon you using these things. So I think that's a really valid a plan for the future, and I think that's awesome that there's a novel that that laid that out.
Yeah, it was really great. I was disappointed I didn't write it.
Yeah. Yeah. When I read your review, actually, in fact, I told you, I was like, man, it's like, I didn't write this. What the fuck? So I hear you. Well, thanks, Jacob. I appreciate that. And definitely, yeah, I would second that recommendation of reading Cory Doctorow's new book, Walk Away, right? That's the title, Walk Away.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And any of Cory Doctorow's books, I mean, they're all just tremendous. I mean, whether or not, you agree 100% with any of them, there's certainly ones I have issue with, but I think there's fascinating things.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I know it was a young adult novel, but I read Little Brother years ago, and yeah. I was with it the whole time until the very last chapter when he says all you got to do is vote for the right people.
Exactly.
And Walkway doesn't have any of that. These Walkway are basically anarchists.
Right. Yeah.
There's no political solutions to be found here. So,
well, fantastic, because I mean, that's really an oxymoron, right? Political solutions. I mean,
exactly.
Yeah. I mean, that doesn't exist. So, fantastic. So yeah, thanks again, Jacob. I appreciate it. And yeah, definitely everybody, check out Walk Away. So, let's see. We got a few questions in the live chat. Why don't we go ahead and rock to those? And let's see. And of course, if you want to come into the Hangout just like Jacob did, the link is in the Patreon post that was made earlier today. It'll be the Hangout link, and you can join right in. We can have a back and forth. So let's see. And I plan on this going about an hour, so we're at like 4:30. So we're doing great here. Let's see. Have you ever done / thought of doing? Oh wait, I already read that part. Okay, let's see. If you could click your heels and bring back ZDTV / Tech TV, but Molyneux gets his own weekly 30-minute Trump Tech segment on it, would it be worth it? Oh, that's juicy. You know what? Yep. Actually, it would be worth it, because God damn it, do I miss Tech TV. I watched that when I was in Florida. Oh man. I mean, it was on all the time, and I just leave it on. And like, I remember the episode where, what was that show that Martin Sargent had? He had that late night show. And I remember the episode when Leo Laporte just walked out in his fucking underwear. And I thought that was the coolest thing in the world. I was like, wow. I mean, that's one of the many reasons why I still have, despite our consistent philosophical differences, why I still respect the hell, Time Cube, there you go, still respect the hell out of Leo Laporte, because I mean, that guy, he has no problem talking about porn. He has no problem trying porn. He tried VR porn. He tried it as the woman, which, I mean, kudos to him, because I don't know that I would have even thought to like try that, but that was the first thing he went for. So I have a lot of respect for the guy. I think he genuinely cares about people and all that. And he's a load of fun. One day I hope to actually work with him. Feel free to email Twit or something to try and get me on there. I get the sense at times that they've actually heard my show and that somebody there listens to it, because there's a few times where they've almost I felt they've quoted me verbatim. And I'm kind of reaching that point where like my listener numbers are sort of getting where I think I fall under the eye of Sovryn to some degree. So who knows, maybe. Anyway, yeah, Trump Tech. Oh, that's good stuff. But yeah, I miss the hell out of Tech TV, man. That was so much fun. Let's see. Here's another one. Did you like the TV series Dear White People? Yes, I did very much. In fact, I might, and Stephanie is right here. She was just, nodding her head. She enjoyed it as well, giving it a thumbs up. So I'll probably do a deeper review of that. I'd like to actually do it with Stephanie, not during this hangout. But yeah, well, she just said she'd like to do it with me too. Don't tell them what we were doing. Well, I just barely made it to this hangout for certain reasons, but boy, all right. So, here you go. Love, I'm sorry. I'm just going to give them this little tip. Okay. It's just about furniture. All right. Let me tell you something. One of the best things that you can put into a bedroom, okay, or wherever you happen to regularly do the business, is one of those person bowl chairs, one of those big person bowl chairs. Have that available, okay? Like just add in some furniture into your bedroom. Believe me, it'll change your life. So there's a little, you get to walk away with that little tidbit of information. Anyway, okay, so where was, oh yeah, Dear White People. So Dear White People, the show, I didn't realize, and I was very pleased at this actually. It's really a sequel to the movie. Now, I had seen the movie before. Stephanie and I had actually reviewed the movie in the past. I forget on which show that we did that, but I really enjoyed the movie a lot. The movie is from a few years ago, or maybe 2014, maybe before then. I don't exactly recall. But this show is actually a sequel to everything that happens in that movie, which I thought was really cool. It's like, oh, okay, well then the movie still matters, because I thought it would be kind of, I mean, I get it. And I think they could have pulled it off where the show was just a rehash of what was originally part of the movie. But no, it's just expanding upon all of those events, which I thought was really cool. So I really enjoyed the show. I thought it had some great points to bring up. I mean, there was just, there was a lot to like there. The characters, they did a great job of building on top of, of them. I mean, and some funny quotes. I mean, and pretty much anybody kind of got trashed. Like anybody that identifies with any stripe got insulted, really during that show, and and the points that mattered, got brought up. I think like kind of one of the more powerful, spoiler alerts, folks, so maybe you want to plug your ears if you haven't watched it yet. I mean, one of the most powerful points of the show is when a guy is about to get in a fight, a black guy is about to get in a fight with his white friend at his white friend's party that he got invited to. And when the cops show up, they instantly like pull a gun. No, I mean, I mean, it's a very confusing situation, but they just, instantaneously they're pulling a gun, pointing at the black guy and saying the black kid needs to prove he's a student, even though they're surrounded by students saying, look, he's a student. It's okay. Stop. I mean, I think if you don't think that that's how a situation like that would have actually happened in reality, I think you're out of touch with reality. And I think they got to explore, I mean, they did a great job of like showing, within this fictional setting of how I think, it'd really affect a person. Like, I mean, the guy that it happens to who gets the guns pointed at him from the cops, I mean, like his whole life changes because it's just such a terrifying moment. And, yeah. I mean, I thought it was a really, really great show, and definitely certainly not what making it to be about. It's not, it's not about that, but it still covers some, it definitely covers very important issues. So let's see, let's go on to another one. What do you think of the future of VR and porn? So I actually just touched on that a little bit. The future of VR and porn, I mean, it's going to be, VR porn is going to be one of the things that puts VR over the top. I mean, that's for sure. I think it's going to be interesting. That, in fact, Stephanie, can I mention your thoughts on pegging? Is that okay? I mean, you could. All right, yeah. Go ahead and unmute the mic if you want. What's that? No, just unmute your mic, and you should be connected. So, but anyway, so Stephanie has kind of this theory, and are you on now?
Am I on?
Yeah. Okay. No, I can hear you.
Hello.
Woo, okay.
Disembodied voice, but I'll wave in front of Brian's screen.
Yeah. Yeah, right. There's the hand. Okay. All right. So now my point that I was going to bring up is that VR porn, especially when it gets to the point to where you're wearing like a suit that allows you to feel and not just see, right? VR porn may allow guys to understand what it's like to take a dick, just straight up. Okay. And now you've talked about how, like, you think a guy should get pegged. I mean, like you said, you can speak for yourself. So that way he knows what it's like. Go ahead.
I think that if you want to be the penetrator, if you want to be the person who penetrates somebody else during sex, whether that's in the vagina, in the butt, in the mouth, whatever, you should experience being penetrated at least once so you can know what it feels like and have empathy for the person you're penetrating. Because it is actually like a big deal to be penetrated. It can be a very like, it's a lot more vulnerable of a position to be in when you're the one who's getting something inserted inside of you.
Yeah.
It's like you could easily get hurt. Your internal organs are like on the line. You know, something is going inside of you, literally. It's way different than sticking something of yours into somebody else. It's just I don't know, the potential, the risk is higher. It feels like the stakes are higher. It can be like a very emotionally vulnerable position to be in,
right?
Especially if you've had trauma around that area and you've been maybe penetrated when you didn't want to be in some way,
right?
Or, I mean, even if you've experienced the feeling of like someone is like invading your thoughts or like they're making you divulge too much information to them that you don't want to give up.
Mm-hmm.
They're coercing you into that. It's like, it's almost like an invasion of your body or your mind or your spirit or whatever. So I think if you want to be the penetrator, if you want to step up and be the big man, with great power comes great responsibility.
Yep.
So you should be willing to experience what it's like to be the other counterpart in that situation.
Sure.
And it will make you a better penetrator because you will understand what it's like. And I think that's true about BDSM as well. Like every good dom, pretty much anybody who ties other people up, any bondage master, any dom, they will say the way to become a good dom is to experience what it's like to be a
bottom. Yeah. So
yes.
Right.
And because then you know what it's like to be in that person's position and you can, you know, basically have more empathy for them and know what they're going through.
Yeah.
And know what they're likely to be feeling when you're putting them in that position.
Yeah.
And you can sort of get inside their mind and experience, like, it's one thing to imagine being in that position. It's another thing to actually feel it. So that's why I like pegging. I like that role reversal. I don't like being limited to the role of the penetrated just because I was born with the particular body parts that I have.
Mm-hmm.
I like being able to switch roles whenever I feel like it. And I think that men shouldn't be limited to, you know, cis men should not be limited to the role of the penetrator either.
Yeah. Yeah. No, so I totally get that. You know, now I haven't been pegged.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of a little bit of an issue in our relationship, I guess. I mean, I think I think you have a lot of compassion for me, Brian, and you don't want to hurt me. And you're very careful when we have sex and you don't like, I feel safe with you. But at the same time, I just think it's such a good idea that any man should want to experience the opposite role.
Well, I'll tell you, step one, I think, to getting...
But you don't want to. And I mean, I respect that, but I also kind of wish that you did want to.
No, right. And who knows? Maybe one day my mind will change. But I want to bring this back to VR. I mean, I think step one is certainly to, like, just understand that, first off, PIV, penis and vagina, is not the only form of sex in the world, you know, and I fully understand that and I fully respect that. And, you know, if I have any kind of empathy for, you know, what a woman is going through, I mean, like it probably stems from that fact first. I mean, first that's an individual, but second that, like, I understand, guess what? There's all different kinds of sex, you know, and not everything has to be about my fucking dick. In fact, it never has to be about my dick. You know, if that's how it shapes up. So that's a good starter, you know, for being able to really understand what your other sexual partner goes through, in my opinion. So, but yeah, I think VR and how the suit would allow you to feel penetration without it actually penetrating you. You know, I don't exactly know how that technological marvel is going to happen, but I think it could happen. But I think that would be,
I think a lot could be done with like point of view,
mm-hmm.
like just feeling somebody else sort of on top of you, or like maybe moving you around, or like
sure.
spreading your legs or something like that. Or a lot can be done with with the point of view and the angles of that. But yeah, I mean, I agree. Like, you can't, if you have a prostate, you can't stimulate the prostate from the outside. There's no way. You have to go up the back door.
Yeah. So someone did just join the Hangout. In fact, it was Rich, and we'll get to Rich in a second. I muted him. Just when you come into the Hangout, if you do want to mute yourself, or I can mute you. That's kind of my godlike control here that I have. So yeah, the future of VR, I really think or the future of porn in VR is really allowing people, to experience all these things that normally either for whatever reason they can't, or that they generally never would because of whatever, risk averse attitudes they have, about it. And so I think that that's going to be, I really feel it's going to change the human condition, much in the ways like you're describing, Stephanie, of why, like pegging could really help somebody understand what exactly is going on. And believe me, I'm so supportive of that. I get that. I get your point, You
just don't want to do it because you're afraid of how it might feel, or you just don't think it'll feel good.
No, not necessarily. It's something I'm chewing over. I've been in, real talk, folks. I've been in situations, like an actual orgy, where a guy tried to put his, tried to put his dick, without consent,
in your butt,
in my butt. And
that's scary.
And admit it, like that is so not cool. Like it like that is not okay.
Yeah. No, that's not cool that he just assumed because you were in the room, you were up for that.
Right.
That's always something you have to ask about.
Yeah, that's the thing with orgies is, just because everybody's in there and everybody seemed to have consented to be in this room and to be, having sex and everything, doesn't mean that everybody consented to every fucking position you can think of in your mind, and this is a big, and this has happened not just in that situation. I've seen it happen over and over again.
Yeah.
And it's, it's terrible.
You're also proving the point that consenting to being in a room where there's an orgy happening and consenting to being penetrated is different.
Absolutely.
Different things.
Yeah.
So that just shows how big of a deal penetration is, being the receiving partner.
Sure. So,
so you had a traumatic experience. So yeah, I guess I get that, Brian, and I don't want any kind of repetition of that kind of trauma. Well, and I understand why you might have some feelings around that you wouldn't want to get into a situation that even looks like that again. Yeah.
So again, I'm not saying that like that's like lingering and like sticking with me and it's keeping me from doing something or whatever. But it's certainly like, these are things that I want to think about, and that like I've always been kind of averse to that. And it's just stuff I want to process, not that I haven't processed some of it, certainly, but yeah, I think that's kind of a big step. Because I don't want to sound like some kind of conservative fuddy-duddy or something, It is an exit only affair. You get what I'm saying? Like that really is designed
for you, or do you think
for
it's
anybody?
For everybody?
All right. So to be fair, I don't want to I don't like fucking women in the ass. Because I don't want to get shit.
Yeah, that's good. You're not hypocritical in that sense.
Yeah, I'm not like expecting them to do something I wouldn't do, and I'm sure there's a pretty good collective laugh.
Well,
she wants to poke your poop cutter.
Yes, she does.
I love it. Yeah.
Well, okay, if you think it's like naturally designed by nature or whatever.
Yeah, but that's a fallacy.
To be an exit only. If you think it's naturally only an exit only place, why are there nerve clusters inside the rectum that feel good for some people when they get touched? Why is the prostate in there? Why is that the route to stimulating the prostate? Absolutely. Those are great points, and that's all stuff that I have to think about, or not that I have to think about. Yeah. It's all stuff that you're processing. Yeah. That I'm processing. Okay. And maybe one day I will let it happen. I don't know. Anyway, that is. So that was a big step, Brian. That was not a conversation I was expecting to have, but that's the beauty of live radio or video or whatever the hell this is. So yeah, Stephanie, thank you for that. But again, I think VR porn is going to, be a huge part of this, and it's going to allow people to really experience in safe conditions, I think, a lot of these alternative sexuality aspects. And that can, in my opinion, that'll be a great thing. And it really is going to change the human condition and allow for a lot more empathy and understanding between people and, between biological differences and whatever else. So anyway,
Let's see. I will read in the chat here. This is actually from Rich, who I'm going to, he can unmute himself because I'm going to have him on, but I'm going to read his point here. It says, my wife and I tried pegging once. She was interested. I didn't give it enough thought, had flashbacks from a traumatic child experience. So, okay, not wanting to talk right now. Okay, to read it pertinent. Yeah, so absolutely. But anyway, Rich, if you do want to come on at some point here, feel free to unmute yourself. We've got about 15 minutes left that we're going to be rocking. Yeah, in the YouTube chat, right in the fart locker, referencing, me, of course, not making a light of what Rich was saying. And yeah, absolutely. So that's something, I'll get there. I mean, there's lots of things, I think human sexuality, there are so many different aspects, avenues that one can take in human sexuality. I don't even think in a person's average, let's say you're a centenarian, like most of my family, it's a bunch of old Jews, and they're mostly centenarians where they've lived, over 100 or about to 100. I think even in 100 years, you cannot possibly explore every aspect of human sexuality. There's so many different things to do. There's so many different things to try, because, there's not just like your body, there's environment. There's, now there's so many toys. I mean, there's so many different things to do. There's so much imagination that you can do now, thanks to, the empowerment of technology, and then virtual reality. I mean, this is one of the things, and I've said this often, and I'll bring it up again. And then there's a couple other questions here, I think, in the live chat that I'll get to, or I do have the one that I still need to get to that has to do with history. But, like I'm looking forward to, most of my friends, not that I have like a lot of like what I consider to be really close friends, live all over the place. They live either all around the world or in different parts of the United States or something like this. So I'm not saying that I want to stoop them. That's not the point I'm bringing up. But I'm saying, like, if, relationships, really close relationships are becoming the norm, being very decentralized, where people live all over the place. And so one thing that I think would be interesting is if people could actually, get their fuck on in virtual reality with other people, and do all kinds of wild shit, but still have that kind of that random creativity that another actual human being, and not just some pre-programmed, quote unquote AI, would bring to the table in a virtual reality kind of, hookup situation, or however that ends up taking shape. And that's something that I'm really pushing for, is where people can have sex like in VR. I think that is, again, that's going to be such a game changer. So, okay, let's see what else. And so, Rich said, like Demolition Man. Yeah, but hopefully it's a little more visceral than that, right? I love that when Stallone says to Sandra Bullock, it's like, sex is like, we haven't even touched yet. And she's like, what do you mean, physical contact? That's disgusting. Yeah. So, but like Demolition Man, I guess, where you both have headsets on and you're kind of doing something, but that seemed like a situation where you don't necessarily have a whole lot of control. That was a very weird situation. I can't believe, I was reading, speaking of Demolition Man, this is one of the greatest, and I'm dead serious about this. Like, I would easily put it in my top 100 movies. I think this is one of the best movies ever made. It's one of the most, visions of the future that you could, and are we past the time of Demolition Man? I forget what year that took place in. But anyway, this movie is Stallone movie, Wesley Snipes, and all that in the 90s. Supposedly that's considered like critically a bad movie. I don't know when exactly that happened. I thought it was critically acclaimed back when, back in the 90s, but I was reading something, I think I was reading, I don't know, some historical stuff about Stallone, which I know that sounds ridiculous, but, I can't believe that anybody considers that to be a bad film. That's a total, oh, no. I know what it was. So I got my hands on the 2-disc, Judge Dredd soundtrack. Okay. And in that, Intrada, who releases a lot of limited edition soundtracks, Intrada had like a book where they write all these notes and everything. And in that, they talked about that Stallone had kind of a string of not so great films. Like, they claimed Judge Dredd was not a great film and that Demolition Man wasn't a great film and all of this. I think that's pure nonsense. Like, first off, I think Judge Dredd is a fine film. I understand why there's people who don't like Judge Dredd. But like Demolition Man, no, I don't understand that at all. That is such an amazing little film. So anyway, boy, I'll tell you, but if you ever want to hear a great soundtrack, that 2-disc Judge Dredd score is, oh man, Alan Silvestri just took it all the way. That is such a badass soundtrack. And in fact, the original 95 version of that soundtrack that actually has like music on it, like it only has 40 minutes of score, not the 2-disc version, but the original one that has has Rob Zombie's Supercharged Heaven, and it has that song by The Cure. Like that, I think that CD sells for like $300 now. That's so insane. I had the cassette, I remember, back in 95 because I love that movie. But anyway, okay, so let's see what else we got here. Don't you think all the VR stuff could represent more of a threat to mental health and tech addiction? So yeah, a lot of people want to bring up Ready Player One, right? Like John Scalzi's work, where he kind of, he talks about that. Yeah, people will get addicted to VR, blah blah blah. I don't really. I mean, I can see that happening, but I see VR as just being another thing that people, or not another thing. It's tough to like just say, hey, VR like is going to create this big problem. I mean, like people already have a bunch of issues with various technologies that they get addicted to. People are already addicted to, Facebook, right? I mean, like the arguments that get made against VR could easily be made against Facebook. So like we shouldn't have Facebook as far as being, necessarily an unhealthy thing. You could say VR is a lot more quote unquote real. And so maybe it's worse in that regard. The difference being is that Facebook is not a technology, or like a lot of these technologies that people can get addicted to and could affect mental health, which Facebook certainly does. That's proven. A lot of these technologies can't actually do anything to really help you get past perhaps these unhealthy actions and attitudes that you develop. As to where VR can, and this is one of the most important things of VR is, to be able to get past traumas. Like imagine, I was talking about that situation earlier where I was literally in the middle of an orgy and somebody was really doing something outside of, my consent. I mean, I didn't allow it to go far, and I'm a pretty big guy, and, I mean, it's, anyway, fortunately, like I have the physical wherewithal to be able to make sure it doesn't go any further than I want. But, imagine, like, say I needed to get over that trauma. If I had a VR, software, if I had VR software that could reenact kind of that scene, and then I could like play through like what actually happened during that scene, and like like I could set it up to where I could actually deal with that. Or adults that still have traumas from when they were a child, they have things that they want to get over and work with. Like imagine if you could actually talk to your parents again. Say your parents have died, or that you walked away from your parents or something like that, but you could have this kind of safe environment where you could go over, say, these traumatic situations that you're working through. VR could really help people with traumas, I think. And that's kind of its uniqueness, is that you're absolutely right. There's the potential for rampant misuse and malicious use, and for unhealthy, attitudes and platitudes to come out of it. But unlike a lot of other technologies, it really has the capability in a very real way to allow people to get over actually the traumas, and to develop a healthy mindset, which would also, I think, by default, keep them from falling into wanting to be into VR forever. Flip side of that is that what's really wrong if somebody wants to live in VR forever? Like I don't inherently think that's a bad thing. It's just another way of existence. I might not agree with it. It might not be the way I want to live, because I enjoy my, my meat sack of a body or whatever, for varying reasons. But I don't necessarily think there's anything wrong with wanting to have like an entirely virtual, like a VR existence. Just, as long as people have an understanding that, you're going to lose out on a lot when you're living in VR. And that, I mean, when that sort of things happens, I think that's like an evolutionary step, and we're not talking about Homo sapiens anymore. That doesn't mean that they don't, they're still persons. They still have agency. They still have consciousness and all these things that gives them, liberties and whatever else. But I really think that, I mean, that's going to be like, that becomes almost a different species, because, what so many parts of like muscle memory, all these different things that make up a human being don't matter in VR. Right. Or at least I mean, it depends on what shape VR takes. So, that's something to think about. they're not going to be second-class citizens. Again, that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying that they're going to be something different. But people are free to make that choice. Let's see what other stuff we have here. Somebody said they didn't like with Dear White People, they didn't like the movie so much, but they did like the TV show a lot better. Right on, absolutely. Yeah, I do think the TV show obviously is just by nature of how much more it gets to explore was better than the movie, even though the movie I didn't mind so much. Like, what if they want to bang kids in their VR world? Oh boy, we're talking a lot of VR here. And we're running out of time, but okay. Yeah. If they want to bang kids in their VR world, boy, well, again, VR is really, this is a dynamite subject, like as in it's a stick of dynamite. I mean, can we control what people do in their heads? No. And to some degree, what happens in your mind's eye is kind of the original VR, sort of the biological VR, after a fashion. If people look, that stuff's going to happen, and personally, I disagree with it. I think I think there's something going on upstairs. That's a problem there. And yeah, you really, what can you do, about that? I mean, and that's always a tough argument, right? Because that's the argument that gets made. Well, this is why we can't have Tor, or this is why we can't have a dark web. This is why we can't have encryption. This is why we can't have anonymity, because child porn is going to get shared. Look, I think it's terrible when it does happen, but we also see at the same time, and maybe this is kind of the answer, like with Tor, what is it, the guy, what is he called? The doctor? Like and I don't think it's just one person. I think it's actually a group, but there is, reported, like Wired's done write-ups on this person called the doctor, and it could be a woman too, where this person this entity, I'll say, self-polices Tor and gets rid of, these sites that offer child pornography and all this stuff. And that's it. Doing a far better job than law enforcement could ever dream of doing, because this person, the doctor, I think that's what they call themselves, obviously understands the technology far better, and has has the mindset to be able to address these, high-tech issues. I think the same thing will probably largely happen in VR, to where, these sorts of this stuff, it just kind of spontaneously gets self-policed. I hate to use the word police, but I hope you take my meaning on that. So that's, that's kind of that's the shtick there. This is something I was talking with somebody about sex robots too, where like, oh boy, this is such a huge subject. Maybe ask me if you want, ask this to me in like a Patreon episode, and maybe we could cover it more there, because I want to get to some other stuff on this. Let's see. What did you think of Mark Zuckerberg's speech? Mark Zuckerberg's speech. This is about the UBI. I did cover that in episode 226 of Sovryn Tech, or 227 of Sovryn Tech. I had Stephanie on. Obviously, I don't agree with UBI. This is not unsurprisingly, I predicted that he would talk about UBI, and that I think UBI is going to be a major part of his presidential platform come 2020. So it didn't surprise me in the slightest. Like, I was just waiting for him to say it. And again, I predicted it just because of like his book recommendations that he made like 2 years ago, that he was going to be big on UBI, and also because Silicon Valley is largely big into UBI. Let's see what else we got here. Maybe we got some more funny ones. I saw there was one about the Libertarian Party that I thought was funny. Oh, would you join the Libertarian Party if you could dance in a Kmart man thong on stage? Yeah, I don't know if I joined the Libertarian Party, but I'd probably go ahead. I have no problem with dancing on a stage in a thong, and I do that. Who is it? James Weeks that did that? That shit was hilarious. So let's see, what other one did we have here? Also, if you were mandated, I love the funny questions. These are the best. If you were mandated to have a PA IoT device and there was no way around it, would it be Google, Alexa, or Cortana? So I don't like playing those kind of war games. No, I'm kidding. I would say I would have Cortana as far as, because that's the one that's the fullest featured. So if I have to have one, I'm going to have the one that can do the most, I guess. Or I suppose one, if you'd want the one maybe that could do the least. But if I have to have it, I have to use this technology, blah, blah, blah. I mean, I guess it might as well help me out. I would go with Cortana. Here's another one. Here's one. What's wrong with white dudes? And that's with a winky face. Oh boy. I need a whole other hour to answer that. Let's see. Maybe I can get into, I had one question that got asked in advance here, and maybe I'll touch on that. And then I want to wrap this up. Let's see. Family day out, so unfortunately can't join. If you have a chance, can you answer the following, please? You mentioned the Toba supervolcano eruption once and how population subsequently dwindled to about 10,000. In true Sovryn style, you took this to indicate Sovryn style. You took this to indicate that the traditional one male, one female societal structure could not have been common, because how could the human species repopulate to these levels since then? Okay, I'm going to stop for a second. No, I'll keep reading because he explains it. Never mind. I am open to other theories, but I don't know why you feel so strongly about this supporting your conclusion. This event was 75,000 years ago. Population increases these days at 1%. 1% per PA. Anyway, even if back then, due to lower life expectancy, it was 1% per generation or less, you'd still easily get to billions of people in less than 75,000 years. Granted, there is a carrying capacity and exponential models don't work over long periods, but it's not out of the realm of possibility that human repopulation was achieved the quote-unquote old-fashioned way. Discuss, please, and thank you. So, okay, I'll touch on this briefly, and then I think we'll wrap this up. So the Toba supervolcano was this event that happened, as was stated, 75,000 years ago, that wiped out all kinds of life on planet Earth. And this is not like some ancient aliens business. This is pretty much accepted fact that this happened. And the argument goes is that humanity was wiped out to somewhere under 10,000 individuals on the planet, Homo sapiens, though most estimates make it anywhere between 1,500 to 2,500 people were left on planet Earth. Now, the argument being made here, or the argument that I make, is that this is evidence that people had to be like kind of fucking right and left, that this monogamous lifestyle wasn't how things were, that we know today, was not how things were done, because otherwise 75,000 years later, how do you end up with, say with so many people? Like, how could humanity have survived if if people are living, in monogamous relationships or whatever else? And so the idea is, though, but based upon the rates at which people can reproduce today, couldn't they have just been still living, having monogamous relationships and still end up with humanity surviving after the Toba supervolcano? So here's kind of the 2 points on this, okay, because it's not just a numbers game, saying that the only way humanity could have survived is if everybody was fucking everybody after the Toba supervolcano happened, because there's only 1,500, say, to 2,500 people, alive. We know from, in fact, I talked about this a little bit in episode 227 of Sovryn Tech, the one that just aired yesterday. And so I totally understand if not everybody's heard it yet, because I didn't release it till later at night. We know that hunter-gatherer groups, they don't, and there's still hunter-gatherer groups today that we can, analyze and, we can look at and say, okay, what do they see about sexuality? How do they handle sexuality and all this? They don't understand that. They don't even understand the concept of one man, one woman. Like they really don't. And in fact, when they want to have a child, the woman, the average thought with a lot of hunter-gatherer groups is that you get as many men to, they observe that sperm somehow, is the catalyst for what makes a human, a little baby, what makes they get that part of it. Right. But their way of thinking is that, well, if I get sperm from all the men in the village, then my baby is going to be, stronger and have a better chance of survival, blah, 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 because it's just going to have more of the sperm, right, from more donors and everything. And this is the way, again, there's modern hunter-gatherer groups that think this way. There's ancient ones that think this way. And so, yeah, it's not just the fact that humanity couldn't survive if, 1,500 to 2,500 people were monogamous. We also know, again, that tribal groups, 9 times out of 10 will, are all about this, where it's this group sex. And also there's the point that, what is the purpose? What is the evolutionary purpose of moaning? Now, I don't like to get into, evolutionary psychology, and I don't necessarily like using evolution as as an argument, like as proof to say, well, we evolved for this, so this is what we should do. Just because something natural doesn't make it right. I think or not that I think, the reason, like, moaning evolved, and it's not just my opinion. Other people, theorize that this is why. The theory goes is that moaning evolved to call more people to help, just like the same reason that cries of pain, like when you get injured, you cry out because it's, hey, tribe, come help me. Okay, I'm hurt, I'm injured. Same deal. When a woman's moaning or a guy's moaning or whatever, hey, tribe, we need more, come on, we got to make sure that the species gets propagated, or however that ends up, kind of shaping up. Also, I mean, the fact that moaning is a call for more people to get involved, also makes sense with which isn't so controversial, the theory that, sex co-evolved, not just as a propagation tactic or technique, to continue on the species, but also as a social lubricant. It's like it's almost literally like shaking hands. I mean, it's far more serious than that, obviously, and we've been exploring that this whole hangout. So you have to add in those aspects too, that it seemed, like there, just try and think about it in your head. Like, why would you think that only, how would a hunter-gatherer type, Homo sapien come to the conclusion that I must only be with one man, and like, only his sperm does anything? Like, I mean, there's just, it doesn't fly. So I think there's a lot more to it than, again, my argument isn't simply that, because of because there's only 1,500 humans, like all of them had to get fucking to propagate the species to the point to where they could survive. But there are some numbers to also back this up, because, you see the various migrations that occurred. Those migrations, based upon the amount of bones and everything else that gets found, with these migrations, be it migrations into Europe or into, Asia, or even now, now they're talking about that 100,000 years ago, there were humans in America, that made it, or that at least far back as 100,000 years ago made it into America. You have a lot of these migrations that also, it would seem, you'd have to have a very high rate of reproduction, and one that maybe monogamy wouldn't make up for, or wouldn't account for, I should say. So yeah, that's a great question, or that's a great point to bring up. And I admit that it's really theoretical for me, to say that, well, everybody after the Toba supervolcano, all of humanity just had to be, getting fucking, and there was no monogamy, or, something like that. But also, I have the, somewhat of the evidence of hunter-gatherer societies, be it past or present, that show that monogamy is really not a part of the program. And there's so much more to say on that. Like, I mean, because then it gets into an argument about property. Then you have to get into arguments about kind of matriarchy and a lot of this other different stuff. I mean, and we could go on forever about that. But I hope that highlights that a little bit. I'm not seeing, let's see, looks like we're largely done. Let's see, here's one question. Why come to the Jackalope Freedom Festival? I'm open to going to, that's in Arizona, right? I love Ernie Hancock. I think Ernie Hancock loves me. So I'm totally, yeah, Stephanie just walked in. I'm open to attending it. So, all right, 2 points. One is, like, yeah, I would go to it. If I don't really necessarily have the time, and particularly this summer, I'm looking to kind of relax, or not relax, but not travel so much, so I can get a lot more shit done, because I have a lot of stuff. I got to finish up Hypercronies too. A lot of different things to do. So I'm not opposed to going to the Jackalope Freedom Festival, or Jack Fest, as I think that's so cool that that's the nickname for it. But also, admittedly, I do like to get asked. Like, I wouldn't be going to Pork Fest this year if I wasn't asked. So, yeah. I mean, at some point, if I get asked to be a speaker or something like that, yeah, but maybe I would attend. So, okay, that's enough of that. I think we're about an hour. Yeah, we're just over an hour in. So thank you for everybody that participated in the show. Like I said, we're going to be doing another hangout, another Q&A live hangout. It'll probably be Tuesday or Wednesday. Keep an eye on Patreon. Keep an eye for the Patreon posts. I'll I'll definitely let you know a day ahead of time. And then the post with all the links and everything comes out generally about an hour, based upon the way the Hangouts works. It comes out about an hour before I actually do the show. So yeah, again, thank you for everybody that sent in your questions early. Maybe some of these I will readdress in a future one. Thank you for everybody that was watching live and everybody asking in the YouTube live chat. That was fantastic. I know that a lot of people are probably barbecuing or doing, something right now. Maybe, I don't know. I know a lot of my audiences are atheists, and so maybe you're, cooking babies and having some like human baby back ribs. Rock and roll. I hope they're delicious, and of course I'm being facetious. And yeah, that's it for this episode. Again, the audio will be out very soon tonight, but I think I need to go get in to workout, maybe grab some dinner, and then I'll take care of it after that. So thank you to everybody that was involved. Thank you to all the patrons for being patrons. I love it. I mean, you really you make all this go round and round. And so it's just a real honor to interact with you. And I mean that. It's a real honor to interact with you, live. And I love this is a funny one. This is good shit. So anyway, all right, there it is. That's enough. And we've got some other Patreon episodes coming out this week. So I'll see you on the other side.
You just experienced Sovryn Tech. Go to sovryntech.com, that's SOVRYN tech.com, and connect with us there. Find links from today's show and catch our podcast feed. Sovryn Tech is copy heart. Copying art is an act of love, and love is not subject to law. So please share the show however you like. Welcome to the evolution.